think we felt that the group we had could get there, but for one reason or another, we didn't get there.
Very quiet, very, very quiet. A lot of disappointment, some tears. It's really hard to describe that feeling.
And I was in my basement for a whole week, but I didn't really, not so much as talking to my family, but so disappointed that I spent a lot of time in the basement just going over what we could have done better, what we maybe shouldn't have done.
Sometimes I wonder if it wasn't meant to be for Dick Hauser. Dick passed away a few years later, whether it wasn't divine intervention, because I thought we had a lot better team.
We had a championship team, and I really felt that we were going to be in the hunt for years to come.
I think we're every like emotionally exhausted almost. It was so stressful going through the whole thing. Being down early and then slowly winning the next game, first game at home, and then losing the next one. It was like, okay, it just seems like we were always with our back against the wall.
Toronto sports fans love the Jays, and they love a winner. In the franchise's first 10 years, only 4 times was their attendance below the league average. 1985 was the first year that the Jays averaged more than 30,000 fans per game. For the season, the team saw attendance soar to nearly 2.5 million. The league average was 1.75 million. 37,557 were in attendance on Tuesday, October 15th, when the Royals and Jays took to the field at Exhibition Stadium for Game 6. Jays were up in the series 3-1, needing only one win to get to the World Series. Here's Cito Gaston.
We felt real good about it, but you know what? I've always, don't celebrate till it's over. You never know what's going to happen. And, any given day in baseball, you can get beaten by the worst team or the best team. But, we had a lot of confidence that we had a great chance to win. Some things happened in the game, and can't say that it went the wrong way for us. But other than that, they just came back and beat us.
This is episode 6. Just one more. It was veteran starter Doyle Alexander against Mark Biza in Game 6. Both starters would work into the 6th inning. The Jays would elect to walk George Brett twice in the game, once in the first and once with 2 outs in the 6th. But in the 5th inning, the Jays decided to take their chances against Brett. He'd punish them. He'd hit a home run off Alexander, giving the Royals a 3-2 lead. Here's Pat Gillick.
Well, what are you going to say about George? He's a great player. That's all I can say about George. Great person, a great player, one of the best competitors that we played against, and so I my hats are off to George. And he's quite a player. No matter what team he's on, he's always competitive and always in whatever sport he's doing. If he's playing golf or he's playing baseball, he's very competitive. So I got a lot of time for George Brett.
Alexander would be pulled after giving up a double to Hal McRae in the 6th inning. With the exception of an intentional walk to George Brett, Dennis Lamp would retire every batter he faced. But the damage was already done. Lloyd Moseby would score on an RBI single by Cliff Johnson in the 6th inning, but that would be it. The Royals and Jays were off to a 7th game. The winner would face the Cardinals in the World Series. Perhaps it's hindsight, but when I asked Pat Gillick if he was always confident in that 1985 team, he had this to say.
Let me put it this way. I don't think you're ever really completely happy with the lineup. You're always trying to improve it. So I can't think back, but I'm sure that I was, and the scouts were trying to improve the lineup all the time. But, to win 99 games in the Eastern Division in the American League, is a pretty good accomplishment. So I would say our players, everybody was pretty confident. When we had some. If you look back, we had 4 or 5 guys hit double digits in home runs. Barfield, Bell, Whitt, Upshaw, etc. We had some pretty good hitters. We felt we could compete with them. The whole season. I didn't think we felt like an underdog at all. I was disappointed we ended up losing, of course, but I don't think we ever felt that we were outmanned.
Game 7 on paper read like the kind of game you do a podcast about 40 years later. Brett Saberhagen against Dave Stieb in a winner-take-all game. Here's Steve Balboni.
I don't think anyone had more confidence on the mound than Brett Saberhagen. He believed he was going to win against anybody, and every time he pitched, he did show, a huge amount of confidence. And it came through on the team. I mean, every time he went out there, we felt like we were going to win.
Some 170 games ago, Kansas City beat Toronto and Dave Steve 2-1, the opener of the 1985 baseball year. Tonight, a half year later, they play for the World Series. Will it be Kansas City and remarkable George Brett? Kansas City, a team that has rallied from behind all season long. Or will it be Toronto, the favorite, a team that has seen a 3-game-to-1 edge erode? The Blue Jays are still perched one victory away from realizing the great Canadian...
The Royals led the Jays 2-1, heading into the 6th inning. That 6th inning would end up haunting the Jays and its fans for years. Ernie Whitt and Tom Henke both say the series was frustrating in so many ways.
It was frustrating, to say the least.
Sometimes I wonder if it wasn't meant to be for Dick Hauser. Dick passed away a few years later, whether it wasn't divine intervention, because I thought we had a lot better team than what Kansas City did. But, they had a great team. They had George Brett, Frank White, Quisenberry. I mean, you go down the line, they had a really good team as well. So, but we were very confident. And when we got up on them 3-1, it was the first year that they had moved the playoff system to best 4 out of 7, instead of just 3 out of 5. And, we just, that feeling of, hey, we got this. You just got to win 1 out of the next 3 games, and then next you lose 1 and then you lose another. And then it comes down to the final game and you're like, uh-oh.
With 2 outs and 2 on, Dave Steve would walk Steve Balboni to load the bases. Here's Balboni thinking back to that inning.
Yeah, that's a long time ago. No, I remember walking. I don't remember the pitch sequence or anything like that. I know it was like I just felt I wasn't swinging good, and I just felt like I just needed to, do something. I needed to battle, and I wasn't trying to do anything but, get on base. I was just trying to hit the ball hard, trying to get a good pitch. And, but he was tough. He had 4 good pitches, and, he could throw any one of them at any time. And, he'd pitch in, he'd throw. Some guys, when they pitched, they'd kind of let up, when they came inside because they didn't want to hit you, or, they just didn't have a lot of confidence coming in on you. And he was almost the opposite. I think he threw harder when he threw in, and but someone throwing that hard makes mistakes, and you had to take advantage of it. But I remember, that I knew I was struggling, and I just had to battle. And yeah, for some reason he walked me, which I didn't do very much. So it turned out pretty good.
Here's Ernie Whitt.
The one thing that stands out to me is I thought that it was the Jim Sundberg at bat. I thought Dave had executed a good pitch that was down and away, and for some reason, in my mind, I didn't think Sundberg hit the ball that well, and it just kept carrying.
And Jim Sundberg, I think, hit that ball off the top of the fence, and that just crushed our dreams of getting to the World Series.
No, I remember Jim Sundberg being up, and then I remember him hitting it.
In the air to right, Barfield going back. Look out for the wind. It hits the top of the fence, and I believe it's still in play. Yes, it is. 2 runs will score, 3 runs score. It's a triple for Sundberg. He missed a grand slam by the narrowest of margins. It hit the top of the fence, but as it is, it's a 3-run triple.
Yeah, it's hard to remember it's been so long. I do remember that. I don't remember every detail, but I remember the excitement. I mean, when we did it, it just seemed like when we got the lead, it was over.
And it was like, what the hell just happened? That's the one thing that stands out in my mind. Then the other one is that George Brett was on fire. I mean, it was like we said that we were not going to let him beat us. And he was hitting pitches that were 6 to 8 inches off the plate. and hitting them hard and driving in runs.
You know, because you should never be happy just being there. You should want to win it all, and that's kind of the way I looked at my career. I didn't want to just be happy being in the big leagues. I wanted to be the best closer in the history of the game. Now, whether you achieved that goal, at least you had a goal. That 85 series, I look back on that some, and I'm like, well, you know, because St. Louis had Kansas City down 3-1 as well, and they ended up winning it all. And sometimes you just wonder if it just wasn't meant to be.
That was Tom Henke.
Well, they are really a bunch of restless people down the right field foul line that they're trying to control. The security guard, don't know specifically what's going on, but they're lined up all over the place trying to get some calm. Generally speaking, Blue Jay crowds are very well behaved. There is happiness over their success, but not much venom after Blue Jay failures. But there is some frustration at work here. They led the series 3-1, and it has slowly slipped away. The lowest crowd of the 4 games here, 32,084 tonight. Al Widmar in the middle with Ken Carson and Bobby Cox, of course.
There's no disguising the hurt.
A man who was fired in Atlanta, then rumors cropped up again within the last couple of weeks that he was #1 on the list. Chuck Tanner's got that job, of course, now.
6-1 turned out to be the final. The Jays did get 2-1 in the 9th, but Lloyd Moseby would ground out.
Cruel and senseless mentality that pervades a good part of the sports world. The mentality that labels everyone but the ultimate winner as a loser. This young team won 99 games. They'll be back for more next year. They were within a game of going to the World Series.
And this may do it for the Royals. For the second time in their history, they're on their way to the World Series. And almost in a vacuum, the celebration begins. And as you look at Bobby Cox, you realize Leo DeRocher was wrong. Nice guys don't finish last. Sometimes they finish a very close second.
The Royals would head to the World Series after overcoming a 3-1 series deficit. Steve Balboni describes the Royals clubhouse after the win.
Well, incredible excitement, obviously. I think we're every like emotionally exhausted almost. You know, I mean, it was so stressful going through the whole thing. I mean, being down early and then slowly winning the next game, first game at home, and then losing the next one. It was like, okay, it just seems like we were always with our back against the wall. And then, winning, it just seemed, it was a big relief, but it was just, I think it was a lot of emotions.
It was a completely different scene inside the Jays clubhouse. Here's Rance Mulliniks and Tom Henke.
Very quiet. Very, very quiet. A lot of disappointment. Some tears. That's really hard to describe that feeling. It was tough. It was tough. Really, what can you say? There's not much you can say. Maybe a little reflection back during the season, maybe a little thoughts about maybe something we could have done a little better during this series that could have led to a different outcome. But that's the one thing about when it's over, and you can't change it until you go to spring training and start the next season.
It was kind of surreal at the time. You were kind of in shock that, we had it. We were 3-1, and we had this, and we let it slip away. And whether it was divine intervention or our own, I'd say it's probably our own inabilities as to get the job done when we needed to get it done. And it just, I guess it was surreal. Well, the season's over. And we're not going to the World Series, and in a probably a deep sense of, I don't know if sorrow is the right word, but just a deep sense of disappointment, but the thing about baseball, is, hey, we'll get them next year, and it doesn't take long to regroup and say, hey, we had a great year. We won the first division championship. You got to look at the positives too, and just not dwell on the negative. And that's what I think a closer, especially a closer, you got to do. You can't dwell on the negatives. You just got to remember the positives. And I think that's kind of what we did, because the next year we came back and did well. I mean, we didn't win the division, but again, man, I'll tell you what, if we'd have had the wild card back then, we'd have been in every playoff from 84 probably all the way who knows how far. So, it's just what it is. It was the time that we played in, and we knew we had to win the division to move on. And, it took us till 92 to win it all, and then that was a long stretch. But you know what? We lost a season, I think, twice on the last day of the year. I always thought, we did the best we could. I used my dad. Did the best we could. We fell a little short. We gave the fans an entertaining, exciting season, whether we won it or not. But, it's just that's kind of the way I approached it. And it kind of helped keep things in perspective.
Once the series was over and we lost, after, 10, 15 minutes or so, I took a moment to go over to their clubhouse and step inside and congratulate some of those guys that I knew. Because, even as disappointed as I was, because I thought we were the best team in baseball overall that year, and as difficult and the way we lost to, losing the last 3 in a row, the last 2 at home, that was really tough to take. But on the other side, I took a moment to congratulate those guys, because I think at that point I felt like, well, if we're not going, at least some people that I'm close to are going to get that opportunity. So, but yeah, it was tough.
Getting to play against his home state Cardinals in the World Series would have been a storybook ending of an incredible first season for Henke in Toronto.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that I was thinking about it. I promise you, I was thinking about that. So, my last year with the Cardinals was a dream come true. I mean, it really was. I wouldn't trade my time with the Jays and in Toronto for anything in the world. And I would have loved to finish my career there. But, getting to play that last year with St. Louis, and Bob Gibson was my bullpen coach. Lou Brock was there. All the guys I watched as a kid growing up in Central Missouri were there. And then having the type of season I had that year with the Roll-Age Relief Award and All-Star Game and get my 300 save in St. Louis, it was just like I said, I commissioned an artist to do a print for the Cardinals Fantasy Camp this year, and it was me in a position. It's kind of funny too, because it was me in a pitching position in 3 different positions, and it signified my 300 save, my Roll-Age Relief, and my All-Star appearance in St. Louis. And it sold for about $6,000, I think. And a guy from Toronto bought it that was in the Cardinals Fantasy Camp. And he goes, I wish this would have been a Blue Jay uniform. I said, well, I can talk to the artist. We could probably make that happen. So that was kind of cool.
Steve Balboni and the Royals would go on and beat the Cardinals in the World Series. Sports writer Rennie Gesarelli would write about the Balboni curse. He was the last player to hit 36 home runs and win a World Series. The curse bore his name. The curse would run until 2001, when Luis Gonzalez and the Arizona Diamondbacks won the World Series.
It was so weird, because it was something like it didn't seem real. How do I put it? How is this possible? 36 home runs. I mean, home runs were just, it was, people were hitting them more and more, and it was like, how did this, number last as long as it did? It was pretty crazy. I think some of it was the Yankees. They had such a good, solid team, and it wasn't about home runs for them. It was about just scoring runs. It was crazy that a team hadn't won the World Series with someone with 36 home runs. It's mind-boggling. So yeah, the more I heard about it, it just seemed more unreal. It's like, well, next year someone will, change it, and then it went on longer than I thought. Just like, my record in Kansas City, I thought for sure, that would have been broken before it was. I mean, I felt like this, our team, being so young, it definitely felt like, things were just going to get better. But then, 86, just injuries and, Brett Sabring get hurt. It just, it happens. And, things kind of fall apart, and that's kind of what happened. But after that year, 84, we were much better than people thought, and then 85, we win the World Series. So, I mean, yeah, I think everyone thought it was just going to get better and better. But unfortunately, like I said, injuries and things changed, and we were a good team, but yeah, it just didn't work out the way it did that year.
Both Cito, Gaston, and Tom Henke say it felt like the baseball gods may have tipped the series in the Royals' favor.
It's just destiny for Kansas City, because you go back and look at Kansas City when they were playing St. Louis Cardinals. Play at first base, the runners out, and they won the World Series. They call them safe, and they went to the next inning, and Kansas City ended up winning the World Series. So I think they were just destined to win, because we had them down 3-1 too, and they came back and beat us.
Sometimes I wonder if it wasn't meant to be for Dick Hauser. Dick passed away a few years later. Whether it wasn't divine intervention, because I thought we had a lot better team than what Kansas City did.
For Ernie Whitt, when he thinks back to 1985, he remembers thinking they'd be back.
I thought we had a great foundation of the team. I really did. And I thought the players that we had on the team, I felt that the nucleus that we had a championship team. And I really felt that we were going to be in the hunt for years to come.
For Pat Gillick, his mind quickly turned to the future.
I know we were trying to do things, tweak things that would, help us get over the hump. And, we went another 4 or 5 years, and we had one run there with the Baltimore, and we beat Baltimore and got in the playoffs, and then got beat by Oakland. We're just trying to tweak the thing as you went along. And finally we got to a point where we said, probably this is enough of it. And, we got to get over the hump. We made that deal in Chicago, getting Carter and Alomar, and that kind of gave us, I don't want to say a new life, but gave us a different look, and it did help us get over the hump in 92, 93.
Looking back, Pat Gillick still can't put a finger on what happened.
I think 85 showed that we belonged in the upper category and in the American League, and deserved an opportunity to compete against the best, the Bostons, and the Baltimores, and the Yankees.
Having Bobby Cox leave after the 1985 season was a blow to the team. Here's Mulliniks again.
He knew us and our personalities. He knew how to get the best out of us. We knew Bobby and how he would manage and run a game. He had just led us to the division championship, and we just assumed that he would probably be in Toronto for a number of years going forward. And when that didn't happen, and again, this is not a reflection of Jimmy Williams and his ability as a manager, but I think when they didn't bring Bobby back and the devastating loss that we went through in the postseason, I think that reflected itself on the field the next year, because we basically had the same ball club, but didn't perform even close to that level that we had in 85. So I definitely felt like Bobby's departure and that terrible, loss in the postseason combined, it took us a year to get over it, to get through it and get settled back in. How often does a guy lead a team to a postseason and then not return? I'm sure maybe it's happened before, but I'm sure it has happened before. But in this particular case, we didn't expect it as players. At least I didn't.
Bobby Cox leaving even came as a surprise to his coaching staff. According to Cito, Gaston, he didn't give his coaches a heads up.
No, he did not. No, he did not tell us. He didn't tell us at all. And I remember Jimmy Williams going down to sign our contracts, and I have to be honest with you, we were a little disappointed in the raise we got. But anyway, and then next thing Bobby leaves, and then Jimmy gets the managing job. But no, he never even come close to telling me he was leaving. But we were going to miss him. to this day, I have no idea what happened with that situation there with him and Gillick or whatever. But Bobby went by. I think one thing, Bobby's family was still living in Atlanta, and he spent most of Europe in Toronto, and he had a chance to go back there. So, it's kind of hard to turn down, too. They're a pretty good team down there, too. Great organization, as you know. And so, no, he didn't tell us at all. But I know after we lost that game, the last game, I know I was in my basement for like 10 days. I lived in Toronto for 20 years, year round. And I was in my basement for a whole week, but I didn't really, not so much as talking to my family, but so disappointed that I spent a lot of time in the basement just going over what we could have done better, what we maybe should have done. And, it bugged me for a long time because you get that close 3 games up and just need one more. That's kind of tough to take. So it really hit me hard, and I'm pretty sure it hit the players hard too. But, hey, we bounced back again next year and gave it a shot again, so we didn't win it, but Bobby left and Jimmy took over. And we got close again, and I think it was 87 a year after that, and then we had a chance to win, but we didn't quite get there on that particular time either. So, and I used to do a lot of caravans, and they would show the good parts on video up until we lose at the end. So it's kind of got to me for a while to look at that stuff in the end. That you get so close, but you never get across the finish line. So I think it's tough on players and all those guys. The only 2 guys I really hate, 3 guys I really hate, wasn't there when we finally won the World Series. And it certainly, it was George Bell and Jesse Barfield and Mosby. They wasn't there, and a lot of guys wasn't there that helped build this organization. And so that's kind of sad for me. But I still see these guys once in a while, and I tell them that to their face. We wish you guys could have been with us when we won our division, because George was still with us when we won the second time, and the other guys were gone. So it's kind of heartbreaking, but hey, that's life, I guess. You're going to have some good days and bad days, but I wish those guys could have been there to celebrate the building of that organization and the way it went to at that particular time.
As fate would have it, Gaston would manage against Cox in the 1992 World Series.
Oh, it was really something. And of course, it was an honor. I never forget him and I walked down to see the umpires, and of course, him being the senior manager, I walked behind him. I'm not walking in front of him. I respect Bobby a lot, and I thank him for my life, what's happened to me in my life. I really do. And I appreciate what he did for me.
Next time on OK Blue Jays, the emergence of a franchise. Where are they now? And what the '85 season meant to the Blue Jays franchise and to the players on that roster.
It was pretty difficult in those first few years, losing 100 games, to keep everybody, upbeat in those situations. But when you win a few games and you get into the winning the 80s and 80 games, 90 games, you get a little more confident and you really believe that you belong there.
The nucleus of the team was there, and they were young. We were young, but it was a team that could compete and would compete year after year. It was pretty consistent baseball through the latter part of the 80s.
We had depth in the minor leagues. If somebody got hurt, we could go get somebody that could come up and fill. Like I said, 85, we bring Tom Henke up in July. I think he saved 16 games the rest of the season. Without him, we don't get there.
Guys got a lot of confidence from that year in 85. And like I said, we almost did it again in 87, 2 years after Bobby left, but it took us down to the last weekend. We came up short. And, as you win and you keep winning and you keep getting closer and closer, what comes first, success or confidence, And so I think a little bit of both.
I think with winning the division in 85, the Blue Jays organization realized, hey, we're for real, and we could do this every year. And, from 85 through 92, we came close to winning that division every year.
They were a very good team. Yeah, as a team you really didn't want to play. I mean, they could beat you very easily, with pitching or with hitting. I mean, they had a strong lineup. Yeah, it was a very tough team to beat. And that year, 85, I mean, they were really good. How we beat them, I still don't know. Like I said, young pitching. The pitching just pitched outstanding.
If you're enjoying the show, please share it with others or even rate it. And if you have the means, consider making a donation to Jays Care, your local food bank, or a charity of your choice. If you want to share your memories or thoughts, email us at okbluejays@mail.com. That's okbluejays@mail.com. I'm Sam Charles. Thanks for listening.